Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of In Lay Terms. I'm your host, Payman Ascari, and my friend Rick Dignard is here with me. Welcome back, Rick.
Thank you, Payman. Thanks for all the work you're doing. It's amazing.
No, thank you. You're the one that's you're making a difference with independent VC. I'm just a guy behind a computer screen. All right, Rick. Let's dive right into it. There's a lot to cover, and I guess we only have the 1 hour. I broke the episode down into 5 different sections. So first, I want to go over the BC Conservative Party
Mhm.
loosely. Like, what is it? What's this council with Aaron Gunn and his other girl on there, the president?
Mhm.
If you whatever you know about the Kerry Simpson case, so that's first one, and then we could tie that into what independent BC is, why you believe it's a solution, specifically that your suggestion for a contract with the voters. The third thing I want to cover is election fraud. We've seen a lot of people on the right quite upset, so they're kind of leaning into emotions. I want to know how much of this is conspiracy theory, how much of it is provable, and then I want to talk about the provinces, what's happened in BC, New Brunswick, Saskatchewan, what's going to happen in Nova Scotia, and developments from Alberta, and then we'll head over to questions. So, Mr. Dignard, BC Conservative Party, what can you tell us about that?
Okay, well, it's a party that we used to have like 100 years ago, something like that. It was liberal conservative when BC started the party system. As some people may not know, BC was created just under independent representation, right? So we only had independence up until the parties moved in the early 1900s, and then conservative, liberal, and conservative is haven't really been a factor in my lifetime, or our lifetime, I should say. But they were resurrected, and they were resurrected by what I like to say a group of very good people, well-intentioned, common sense people that just want our lives back, right? I don't think they want to be politicians, and that's a very key thing. Is I know you did a really good show yesterday with Peter McIsaac, and he said, we've actually vetted these independents now. Independents that come Johnny come latelys, they're just showing up because it's trendy to show up as an independent, and they've got some name recognition, so they're opportunists is what they are, right? So what Peter said was key. We actually have people that didn't want to be politicians. So that was really key. Anybody comes running to us saying, I want to run, I want this, I want that, that's what you want to stay away from, because people that want our lives back just want common sense to come back, and they don't want to be famous or well known or anything like that. So all of their candidates, for the most part, had to be talked into it, right? So they've got 20, I think, solid people that are going in there for the right reasons. He explained to you, that there was a hiccup because the premier actually broke his own laws, and he called an early election, so they didn't get a full slate like they originally intended. That was their plan. So getting back to the Conservative Party here, they were resurrected as a provincial Conservative Party, trying their best to distance themselves from the federal Conservative Party, because that's another story. I don't know how successful that's going to be in the end, but that was the way it started. Grassroots, people that didn't want to be politicians, and it got a really good start. And John Rustat, who of course went independent, became leader there, and started to add pieces to the puzzle. Now, I'm not convinced that those moves of adding certain pieces were very smart in my estimation, for the long game. But the original Conservative Party in BC had a very good start, and I think they would have been better off to stick to plan with, not sort of caving into, I like to call them globalist issues, and trying to reach everybody. You're kind of thinning the milk. That's where the problems come in the party system, any party system. So that's sort of in a nutshell how the Conservatives started. We'd be here a long time to go over, where they went wrong, where they went right, and whatnot. So that's how that party was born, and it's quite amazing, because now they almost won more seats than the NDP in a very short amount of time. So politically, yeah, that's great. They would say genius, but in the long game, we're just going back in the same merry-go-round that we've been in our whole lives, in my estimation.
Okay, so then you kind of praised the BC Conservative Party. So what is it that the BC Independent BC can provide above and beyond that, or what is your selling point?
Yeah. So basically, we first and foremost saw that more than half of the people in BC that can vote don't vote. And we're looking at this in a very elementary way, and we've turned it into like a big candy bowl of people. And who's ruling us? The shot glass of marbles or candy or whatever you want to call it. So that's who's sort of ruling all of us. And it's twofold and threefold what the problems are. It's the system, it's the people's culture that they're just used to being told by a big tent party what they should and shouldn't be doing. And it's never worked out well for anybody I've talked to that's been involved in voting. It's very rare you hear I've been very satisfied with my representation. but we looked at that as an opportunity. Like we can get more. I mean, the government should actually be paying us for doing this, is trying to get more people to vote, more people involved, more people engaged, because we'll have a safer society when more people are participating in it, right? So that was our pitch, was the people. We're not here to steal anybody's votes or ruin anybody's parade here. We're here to get people to understand you don't have to be married to a party to be represented. In fact, you can be represented much better if you're not attached to a party. So that's what we've been working on. And, the independents that ran, there were some brilliant campaigns. Some of the independents that didn't win were the best people in their ridings. So it wasn't anything they did wrong. They were amazing candidates, several of them. And it was a people problem where they just didn't either have access to, what's truly going on and what's going to end up happening if they keep going on the party train, or by not voting at all. It's just dangerous. It's just a dumb thing to say, I don't believe in politics. You are politics. So you might as well have a say in it, and, think about your family and what you can contribute to make things better for you guys. So, it's daunting work, of course, but we know that that's how it was before we were born. So we're kind of revisiting it, and a lot of communities are revisiting it. You're seeing it around the world. Was it BC's turn? No. So that doesn't mean it's not going to be. You look at history, our human history, there's been changes and things that you thought would never happen all over the map. So we're just, we're honored to be part of it. So this is what we're trying to do, educate people. That's about it.
Tell me about this contract with the voters.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so we didn't have the timeline, that Nova Scotia did in this, but we're wholeheartedly in favor of having a personal. I called it a personal services contract. I forgot what Peter coined it, but so this would be a contract that any person that wanted to represent their constituency would say, I'm willing to sign certain planks that I will follow. That when I get elected, you won't have to worry about me going against human rights or bodily autonomy, or certain very important planks where people can take a breath, a sigh of relief, that I don't have to worry about my kids being exposed to this or I'm exposed to that. Like, so these representatives would already be vetted, and so you would know how far they could go and how far they couldn't go. So ideally, you want a system where whoever's voted in, you don't have to send panic through half the population, right? It shouldn't happen. There should be certain planks that everybody would agree on, right? And we're not there right now. We've got dangerous people in positions of power, and they're not going to stop. These people know they've broken laws, they've hurt and killed people, and this is all provable stuff. So they're not of right mind, and they're getting elected by people that should know better. So the personal service contract would be the ability for the voter to say, you know what, I can actually live my life now and not worry so much about losing my job because I won't do something the government said, for an example. So that person that is willing to sign that contract, that's who you want running for you. Somebody who says no way and runs away from you, that's the last person you should be voting for. And every single party politician would not sign that. I can tell you that right now.
Well, what's in this contract? Would it be like before voting on any bill in the legislature, you
No,
have to consult?
yeah, it's not like, in my view, like this is still in the works, you have to remember. But in my view, you don't want to have a politician that can't think for themselves. Like they've got to be able to think, like, this is my community. This is the way my community is telling me to go this direction. So I'm going to go this way. What I'm talking about is anything that is groupthink, in the party system. People put up their hands for things they don't even know what they're putting their hands up for, right? So you don't want that representing you. You want a person in your community that hears from, anywhere from 50% to 90% of the voting population there to tell you as a representative, this is what we want. We don't want this in our schools, for example. We don't want this in our bodies, for example. We don't want, planes flying over our houses and poisoning everything that's being dropped from the sky. So those are the kinds of things that you could be assured that your representative would not support, right? Right now, the people that are elected, most of them don't even know what's ahead of them. They're just going to be told when to put up their hand and when not to, right? No matter what they tell you, you're going to hear all sorts of different things on the news or wherever. As Peter told you yesterday, he went into it in quite detail. It was really, really good to hear. No matter what they tell you, that this is all like a psyop, right? So they're going to be thinking about, how hard it was to get into that position, the kind of money they're making, the kind of money they can make. And they spend their time thinking about that, not about the betterment of people. There's no money in that. So the people that are willing to sign that aren't there for the money. They're there to, to obviously they need to be paid to pay the bills, but it's not about getting rich. They don't care. They know they're going to die one day, and they don't care about making as much money as they can, which unfortunately lots of people do, right? Lots of, well-meaning people do. Like that's their time. I'm here to make a buck, make bank, right? So it's a mindset. It's all of us. It's how are we teaching our kids, right? So if you make that the most important thing, what do you think you're going to get when people become adults, right? For representation, pretty selfish people, right? So that's kind of it. I say a lot of times this isn't political. This is psychological, right? It's less political than psychological. So we need good people, not good politicians, to be getting involved.
I was thinking about this. If I was going to do this and sign a contract with
Yeah.
the voters, it can't. I'm guessing the deliverable. It can't be something like pass a bill
Right.
ensuring medical freedom, because it's not necessarily in my power to do that. It would
Exactly. Yeah.
it would be more like I will not vote for any bill that takes away any medical freedom, something like that.
Well, or this is something that when I was a kid I didn't even understand. Chuck Cadman, who was an independent out our way, he was with the Conservatives, and he ended up getting the boot from or replaced, however that worked, and he decided to run independent and won. And he actually had, the way the numbers lined up, he actually had the ability to bring down the government. I think it was the Harper government, if I'm not mistaken, and he had a ton of camera people around him. It was a national thing at the time. And they said, well, what are you going to do? You could bring down the government or whatever. He goes, you know what? He says, I'm going to go home and talk to my constituents and I'll get back to you. And I thought, wow, like and I didn't know much about politics at this time, but that's something I didn't hear from anybody anywhere. And I thought, that's cool. Right. So, that kind of stuff always stuck with me. Um, why wouldn't you talk to your constituents? Like that's the way the system should go. We would be lucky to see that happen, and that's the kind of stuff we're working on. And it helps to engage the constituents who are less and less and less engaged because they see the crap going on in the political arena every day, regardless of party. It's all just cover yourselves. It's not represent the people. It's how do I cover myself, right? What can I get? It's terrible, and it's a reflection of what's happening in our society, right? So don't say you're not interested in politics. Say that I want to make a true difference, not just use the words, right? All these words that everybody uses. It's about the actions, not the words. People can say whatever hell they want and get elected, and they've been doing it my lifetime. So in a nutshell, that's kind of the way we look at this. It's psychology almost over politics.
So one final question before leaving this contract. Would it be legal to come up with like a strata council sort of thing where whatever contract you sign with these people, you say before I vote on it, you guys will have an internal vote and I'll vote however you guys want me to vote?
I guess you could do something like that where, it would be like almost like a town hall or something. Like you would have an important vote coming up and an independent candidate. I know we had independents that said, I will have two town halls every so many 2 months or something like that. They put that as part of their platforms, right? That I will speak with the people directly, unlike a party politician. You got 4 years with me. I want to meet with you. I want to be working for you, not just at campaign time. So they could, I guess, go to the people and have a town hall over this bill or that bill or whatever it is. And you get a consensus when the people participate and they tell the representative, whoever that is, like, you better vote this way. Otherwise, we're gonna pull the plug. And you're never going to see, this job again type thing. So I guess they could do something like that, Payman. The details of these contracts, I know that Brian Peckford, who is a lawyer, has spoken about some of this kind of stuff. And he's worked with Peter on this contract stuff. And yeah, I'm in full support of some kind of a personal services contract. Of course, you're one representative out of 93 in BC's case. You're not able to run the whole show. You're not going to go in there and save the world, but you can put a lot of work into changing the culture in the House. So if there's a handful of independents and a party wants to go a certain way and they realize these independents are going to go the other way, they might have to compromise. They might have to say, they got us here, right? And that's sad that they have to do that, but at least it's good for the people. The people will be safer when people can put the brakes on something. Right now, we can't put the brakes on anything if we're going along with this corrupt system. So a long way to answer your question is yes, I'm sure there are ways where you can get a consensus-based decision from the constituents that shouldn't take too long on certain issues.
I always wondered with today's technology, this isn't the 70s where you have one CBC and you got to go to the
Yeah.
CRTC. You spin up your own podcast. You can do a Zoom
Yeah.
virtual town hall. There's nothing stopping MPs from doing this daily.
Well, there is something stopping, and they're pushing really fast for what bill B. I've lost track of the bills, but there's a bill that will stop that payment, and the current governments on all sides are working towards it because it benefits all the parties. We'll never be able to do something like this. What we're doing right now, it won't even be legal. So we have to put some thought to that.
Yeah, I think you're
Like
talking about Bill
we have to get
63.
involved. Like Peter was saying yesterday about the things that we talk about that we think we're free, and you just said there's nothing stopping us. Well, they hear you and they're going to stop it, or they're going to try to. I don't think they're going to be successful. I'm not as scared as some people because these are all just words on a paper with a queen stamp on it. I think once the people lose their shit, it's not going to matter all these bills, right? Because we're just going to be caged animals, and people aren't going to. If history tells us anything, it's not going to stick. So we got to keep on doing more of this kind of stuff, the stuff that the government's trying to stop. And this is all governments, guys. Like, this is. You're not safe with the blue team, the red team, the green team. We're done if we don't get a handle on the system. That's the root. So party all you want because another team won the election. It's not going to matter. It might make us feel better, but it's going to be a very short honeymoon.
All right, so let's go on to the next topic, which is the election. How much of this is Conservatives being sore losers and refusing to accept that they lost fair and square? How much of it is actually fraud?
I think there's a ton of fraud. I don't think they are being sore losers. They're accepting this defeat. I don't think for 1 minute this was close, personally, for a bunch of different reasons. But when I see stuff like the president of the Conservative Party basically, blowing smoke for Elections BC, which is just as, I mean, these are incompetent people that are running this outfit, right? They're changing rules on the fly, and we've got a little bit of history with them going back to, some of the referendums, but it needs to be fixed. We need to fix this mess that they're in. So to basically come to the aid of the voting systems for a losing president to say everything's fine here, everything's good, I smell a rat. Like, who does that, right? And yeah, you're right. It does seem like you're a sore loser. So if you speak before the election, you're in trouble. If you speak after the election, you're in trouble. We just want a fair election. And when you've got black boxes and people that have no idea what they're talking about, say everything's fine here, everything's on the up and up. What are you talking about? You're just making stuff up. So there's a reason you're doing that, right? You don't come to the aid of something that actually defeated you, right? Which tells you that something else is going on here. Something bigger is going on here. Frame it any way you want. Oh, you don't want to look like a sore loser or whatever. No, like when I think about the American election, when I think that was completely stolen as well. Not that I'm a fan of either party, but I think it was stolen. I truly believe it was stolen. Now I'm thinking, well, if I'm Joe Biden, I'm thinking, I don't want to win this way. Let's find out what happened, right? And oh well, Trump's just a sore loser. Well, he went through him and his team went through some legal means to have this investigated, and they found a lot of corruption going on. Like you could even see it publicly. Some of the corruption, they're taping up windows and stuff and kicking people out. Like there's weird stuff going on. That's not confidence in the public. The public won't gain any confidence there, right? So back in the day, I can remember my folks complaining about elections, and I didn't know what was going on, but they were just, by the time the elections were counted and it reached Manitoba, it was over. And I'm like, so be it, if that's the way, right? So now everywhere, it's so close. It's so close. We're all being conditioned. I think we're all being conditioned to believe this crap, right? So because it can be controlled. And there are people that in tech that have explained to me how you can rig stuff. It's not that hard. And I don't know enough about it, and I don't know if I'll be able to grasp it because I'm not a technical person. But when I hear these technical people talking about how the votes are actually, I call it chopped into pieces. Like, why would you chop votes? It's first past the post. It's very simple. It's the simplest voting system on the planet, right? There are systems that you do have to chop into pieces, but that makes my head spin when smart people think there's a reason you need voting systems. There's only one reason you need a voting system or a electronic voting system. It's to cheat. And we're not even going to the root. We're blaming other people, that have nothing to do with the corruption for what's happening in elections. Well, you should have voted this way. You're an idiot. Get everybody fighting amongst each other, and people that are trying to save other people are being called out as dumb because they vote a certain way. What's wrong with us, right? So get rid of this electronic voting stuff, and you'll take a lot of the other problems away, and then you'll get to the corruption of the individuals. Then when they actually have to do some time, people will go, you know what? Things are changing. Like, people are having to pay for their mistakes. And that's what we should be talking about, because a new color is not going to save us.
Okay, so I want to stay on this topic. We'll get back to the voting machines.
Yeah.
The allegation that these elections officials took ballot boxes home with them, is that true?
100% it's true.
Is that to the letter of the law? Are they allowed to do that?
I'm not sure. I will say the reason I know it's true, because somebody I know personally who has been involved in, I don't know if they were volunteering or if they get paid, I think, something for it, but they were an official of elections BC, and I know for a fact that in past elections have been taken home.
What
so
is
when I heard it,
BC?
I go, well, I know it's happened.
Sorry, Rick, what is Elections BC? Is it like paid employees in the government, like the CRA, or are these volunteer citizens?
No, they're employees. Like, they work for the government, like anybody else who works for the government. Like, I worked for the government for 35 years. So, but they're supposedly non-partisan, right? And many employees might be like, I'm not saying that they're in favor of the winning party or not, and because governments change and different parties win at different times in different eras. So no, I just don't think that the system itself is conducive to, you know, things being run fairly, because you do have certain people on the chain, right, that take orders. I'm assuming from government, because the government would have the inside track on there. Now there may be other influences that I'm not aware of, because, you know, you got to think about government. And I've worked with several people that have worked in government their whole lives, and they've worked with different governments. So a deputy minister in one government could be with, you know, Team Orange, and that same deputy minister could be in the next government in Team Blue, and they've never ever lost, because they're permanent. They're like permanently in government, right? No matter which party wins. Bob Plekas, he told me the story about all the premiers he's worked for, and these were people that apparently hated each other, but they were all on the same team. So interesting people out there that have the people that are in front of the camera aren't really running the show, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think Randy
So,
Hillier's messages that as well.
oh, okay. Well, yeah. So yeah, he would know. But and I'm not saying these guys are like criminals or anything, but it goes way above them many times, like especially today, because we do know there's a globalist agenda. That word was never used. I heard Bill Vanderzam coin that phrase when I was working with him on the HST, and he said New World Order, and the room just went, oh, like he's lost it. But he was right. He knew exactly what he was talking about, right? And there were people that wanted him out of government, right? So it's a very tough puzzle, but it's a really fascinating thing for people to look into. If anything, you know, look into what's going on there, because you're going to find that this is all a play. The whole thing is a play. We need to either get good people in there to change the culture, or find a way how we can, you know, dismantle it. Nothing will change without citizens' involvement. We have to have a citizens-driven group. And I know people are talking about this right now. I certainly can't, you know, be involved, you know, at any level at this point, but I know other people are, and they're very upset about what's happening with the voting system. And they have a lot of knowledge in the technical part of it, which is great, because that's what we need. Not something that a lot of us grew up with, was a technical experience in voting. You shouldn't need any technical experience just to cast a vote or understand how voting works, right? So they've done this on purpose to make it so daunting for people to even want to get involved anymore. They feel like they're criminal. It's like going to a pawn shop. Some people just won't do it, even though they're not actually stealing anything. They kind of are in a way, right? It's sort of the same kind of thing. That's what politics has come about, right? So, yeah, that's something that people should understand, that it's beyond the color and the person on the podium.
What about this allegation that 61,000 ballots materialized out of thin air? Is it just the process that's it trickles in, or what happened there?
Well, it could be a million things. It's hard to say. I'm imagining that it's not because anybody did it on purpose or anything. It could be just the fact that when a shipment came in, that person was sick that day, or they've been sick for a week, and you got to remember, Canada Post has, you know, independent posties all over the country, right? So people just take their pickup trucks and they go pick up mail all the time for Canada Post. It could be something like that. We don't know. It's such a labyrinth, right? I'm just throwing something out there as an example, but it may not have even been on purpose. But the good news is, if it did legitimately happen, it was reported, and so that means transparency to a certain extent. But it's almost like conditioning us to get used to the fact that, oh well, 100,000 here, 100,000 there. I mean, the last Canadian election, there was something like 200,000 ballots that didn't get even found. They never got opened. They never got counted, and it could have changed the government. Not that that would have meant it's any better, but it's just pretty sad that could happen. And it got out but it never got out, if you know what I mean, because the corporate owned, or the government owned media basically didn't allow it to get. CBC was not told you got to run this story, right? So there's so many things, Payman. Like it's exhausting to think about the things that could have happened, but there's a way to take all that out of the equation. But they're not interested in that because you can control all the elections.
Okay, what about this? How is it that we have machines and it takes 10 days to count? Like, how is it that we could do this for thousands of years or hundreds of years,
Yeah.
same day
Well,
voting, and then
yeah,
all of a sudden we
and
can't?
countries with 3 or 4 times our population hand count, and if it takes overnight, so be it. Who cares? Let's just do it right, right? We have to have human scrutineers. We have to have reports of any, wrongdoings or anything like that. We have to have watchdogs on top of a simple hand count, not dicing up votes or chopping them into pieces or whatever the algorithm has to do to the votes. Like the way it was explained to me, like, this is insane. Like, how did this even get here? Right? So fast, right? So yeah, we have to get to that root problem. Look at, we're spending all this time talking about the actual machines. Why do we have machines? In fact, if they did want to use machines as an add-on, that's fine. But that's not the main way you get the decision. If you just want a quick count, oh, it's looking this way or it's looking that way, but the hand count needs to always be there. If you want to even have people participating in this, you have to have some kind of integrity that, a human being can say, yeah, this is on the up and up. In fact, the people that are trying to push all this stuff, they need to be inviting the public that is voting to make sure that they're comfortable. So that people like you and me can go to people that don't pay attention and say, listen, we had a whole bunch of us in there and everything looks good. But we can show you, like, we can prove. We don't just say it, right? All of these problems, if they don't involve the citizens that aren't there for the money or any other reason, once they're involved in the process, you'll start seeing things change, right? Right now we're kept out, and there's a reason we're kept out, because there's wrongdoing, right? If you don't want to be accused of wrongdoing, bring us in, show us, prove it.
Okay, last question. Does it even matter to have scrutineers if you have a machine that's a black box?
Well, no, it doesn't mean anything. It's just for PR to say we got scrutineers. So what? They can't see in the black box. That's why I said this. The president of the Conservative Party is saying everything looks good here. What? You get in the black box? You don't know what you're talking about.
I
This is
saw that,
just,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, what a joke. And the fact they can't see how they just think you're stupid, Payment. I think people are that stupid. And it's like, well, they are, right? Right. There's a lot of stupid people that would just, oh, that's good. She had a look. She had a tour. Well, they showed you the inner workings of this. Well, do a course. Show us how it works. Right. Because I know the technical people I've talked to, I'm like, I don't want to hear any more of this stuff like this. This makes my head spin. Right. So we don't need to be chopping up votes or algorithming the votes or whatever. This is crazy. This is just, you're getting people conditioned to accept this language. And I just reject the language. We shouldn't even be talking about this. Our eyes off the ball, right? Our eyes are somewhere else, not on the people representing us anymore. We're talking about machines and boxes for votes. It's like, oh, yeah, it gives me a headache.
Yeah, they're trying to control the narrative.
Yeah, and they are, because we're allowing it. That's the thing that they need, that in the recipe, is for us to buy their crap. And I just personally don't, but a lot of people do for whatever reason. It's their own personal journey in this. But I think we're going to eventually get people to understand we need to take the wheel. We got to take the wheel. Otherwise, we're going to be doomed here. So it's pretty dire straits.
The next topic, I guess, that we can talk about, the provinces. So I look at what's happened. BC, it's gone NDP. New Brunswick, it's gone Liberal. Saskatchewan, apparently it states a Sask party, but that's not exactly.
Yeah, they defeated the NDP, but I'd have to, in all honesty, I'd have to know a little bit more about the makeup of that party. But again, any kind of party structure, it's all going to meld into the same pot of soup. That's where the deals go, right? Is once you're in the party structure. So, we saw that in BC where, the brand new party, the Social Credit Party, right? And they were quite popular, and they did a lot of good things in the province, actually. But eventually that became the Liberal Party, which became the United Party. Like, the people felt, shipwrecked politically. So, sometimes you'd see that in a province where a party will pop up. In Alberta, you'd have like Wild Rose or one of these other parties. But yeah, that's totally possible that everybody's supporters could go over to one brand new party, but it's still a party, and it still becomes the old Conservatives or the old Liberals, right? Or the old NDP. Well, not the old NDP, but the new NDP, which is not anything like the old NDP. So it's just something that it's an environment that doesn't lead to a good road in the long time, because it's about power in the end, right? And it's almost like it's an insider trading organization now, politics across the country, right? So these guys who are making 110 grand a month are millionaires in 4 years, right? Or a year. They're millionaires, multimillionaires in a few years. So you take a guess what's going on.
Oh, it's definitely not on the up and up.
No, no.
I get where I was going with that is it feels like the provinces are chess pieces and being taken off the board. So we've got BC gone, New Brunswick gone, Saskatchewan kind of gone, Nova Scotia might be gone, and this morning Alberta seems like that's gone too with the exemption for the Bill of Rights.
Yeah. Like these things they're allowing, these things that we thought were etched in stone or hammered in stone they've shown that they can make the Charter of Rights and Freedoms just completely useless piece of paper if they want to, right? So, what's stopping them from doing that to everything, right? And this benefits every single party. It's about them being able to control. You voted for us. This is the way they think. You voted for us. Now sit back and we'll do our job. And if you don't like us, vote us out next time. Problem is, the next time it's the same group of people, even if they look different. It's the same group. So yeah, people like to talk a lot about Danielle Smith, but I think people really have it backwards, because they look to her to wave a wand and do this and do that. That's not how it works. That's not something that would work, and it's not sustainable. What she needs to do, like you'll hear some of her speeches and it's like, wow, this lady's going to change the world, and everybody's all excited. And then you bring up another issue, and she'll just shake her head and say, my hands are tied. There's nothing I can do here. So like, she gets to pick and choose, right? So the right way to do it is to have people that are representatives, and then they fill their ministries with good people. So you're not going to get 4 guys in jail out of jail by waving your wand. You're going to populate the justice system with good people that believe in, morals and ethics and all that kind of stuff. And they'd be willing to sign some kind of a contract where, for a judge example, as an example, we can find many judges that have broken the law, like tons of them. But it's not put out there for people to see. And there's no way of shaming them and putting a spotlight on why we have problems in our country, because our law was broken. The law was broken by an actual official, a judge. So we need a system where we can make sure that people like that are held accountable if they do something wrong or break the law, right? Policemen, police chiefs, school teachers, doctors, all this kind of stuff. There has to be consequences for people that break laws. The laws are for everybody, right? So politics is no different. And so somebody like a Danielle Smith, she'd have to populate the courts with people that are following law and doing everything on the up and up, not come in there and wave a magic wand and say a new sheriff's in town. That's not the way things are going to work. You're going to, you're going to be you're not going to be very long for this world. And it shows you, because she before she became premier, I think she got kicked out of her previous party, and she took a radio show to, for work and everything like that. And, in a few years she becomes premier, right? So I'm not saying I like the language she uses, except for the fact that you're not going to do this by yourself. You need to have the people in the system, and that's your job. You're overseeing who's in the ministries and the right people, right? And I know Trump used to call it cleaning the swamp, which he never did. He hired people that were fans of his, as opposed to what he's doing now, which is people that never liked him. A lot of his hires are people that couldn't stand him a few years ago. So that's a huge difference. And that's a smart move. You don't want to bring your friends into something where they're not going to tell you what you need to hear. Right. And I'm sure Donald Trump is being told this is the type of shit you shouldn't be doing to a lot of, from a lot of people. I think his ego's come down a little bit, but he's still there. He's still going to be who he is. But it was all ego. I don't think he expected to win, actually. He looked so shocked when he won the first round, but now he's hiring some good hires, right? He's got some good people that he's going to make and put in his cabinet. So that's the template you want to go towards, is people smarter than you, right? You want to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, not wanting people that are going to stroke you every day. That's a disaster waiting to happen.
I get the sense that the globalists, they realize that this is their last chance and they're throwing everything at it.
Yeah.
And basically people like you and Peter are standing in their way.
Well, we're trying to get everybody to stand in their way, right? And stop believing the psyop. Stop looking at your TV like it's the truth, like Jesus is coming or something. It just drives me nuts when I see this going on and everybody's gathered around and waiting for the podium, person to come on that they're going to save us. And it's like, it just honestly gives me a headache. I had a headache 2 days after that debacle on election night, right? And again, I can't just come out and give you a piece of paper and prove it, but I don't think for 1 minute that was close. But I think we're moving towards a shift, because it's sad in a way that people don't want to vote, and I understand it. I completely understand it. But in another way, once they realize that they could have an impact on something, and there is a way they can contribute and participate, and we get that ignited, you'll see a different society, because we don't want to hire used car salesmen anymore and put them in our legislatures and pay them way too much money and watch them cheat, steal, and lie, right? And Peter's group, they're on the right track. They're on the right track, getting the right kinds of people that they had to talk into running, as opposed to people that are like, hey, I could make a lot of money doing this. It's insane, right? So, and if people don't know, it's the blue team that they're trying to get rid of there, because now they're able to sell everybody's medical information. They can get their hands on your own personal medical information, which is what we went through in Bill 36. And, people just didn't care about it until it happens to you, right? So people are starting to see a pattern of what's happening, and unfortunately choosing not to participate, which we understand. We're trying to do something about it where you'll have a reason to participate. If I had somebody that I really wanted to vote for, 100%, I'm going to line up and vote for them. I encourage all my friends to vote for them, because we're not happy with the way society is turning everywhere. So we need to get our psychology right. I think it is up to us. We're the largest demographic. We've got all the parties put together, beat in numbers. A lot of people say, wow, when you put it that way, yeah, well, we just have to be the ones that get off the couch and do it. So it's not the fact we don't have good people. We've seen so many good campaigns, amazing campaigns from independent candidates, and people blew the chance. People that didn't want to participate. It had nothing to do about affecting the other party's numbers. They just chose not to vote. If they chose to vote, they'd have different people in representation today.
Rick, let's head on over to some questions we have.
Sure.
All right. The first one, what will be the outcome of the NDP victory after the publication of Premier Eby's name in the foreign interference affair?
The same as it was for every other scandal that came up. It'll get swept under the rug and you won't be talking about it in about, 5 to 10 days. Like, that's what they've been involved in from the start. I mean, David Eby was Attorney General before he was Premier. He was working on laws when they were starting to look at suing government officials civilly, there was loopholes and stuff that they were changing so they couldn't sue them, like indemnity laws and things like that. They weren't even reported, right? Before he was even, so he was already setting the table for all this kind of stuff. This kind of stuff was already planned, right? And, people like Horgan, get out because they probably saw what was coming and think they'll be clean once, things get broken wide open. But even when things are broken wide open, you hear talk. I heard from an RCMP several years ago. I forgot his name, but he called out the existing police that stayed in their jobs, and he said, there's over 20 arrestable offenses by Justin Trudeau, and you guys are doing nothing. And he's a former policeman. He quit. And nobody knew that there was a couple of dozen RCMP that took the federal government to court. I mean, that would have been a massive news story when I was young, with my parents and people that were of voting age and whatnot. But now it's just, oh well, another corruption story. It's just, and they're that arrogant that they don't worry about it. They're just desensitized. So all these jokes and memes and all these things going on. Yeah, great. Bring it on. They don't care. So people say, what about when people hear about the EB thing, this latest, insider, I call it insider trading with politicians, but the answer is nothing's going to happen because nothing's happened already. You're going to tell me they haven't broken any laws in the 8 years they've been in power or recently and nothing's happened. I mean, what makes you think something's going to happen now? Lots can happen, but I don't think that story is going to be the tipping point. Maybe there will be a tipping point. Hard to say.
So there's another question. I'm guessing your answer is going to be very similar to the one you just gave. Do you think the BC Conservative Party is going to denounce or go after EB after this revelation?
Yeah, they're going to go after EB, and both teams would do the same thing. But what the problem is there's a lot of things that the other side can go after the other side for too. So not everybody's an angel in every party, right? So it's just going to be a constant, sort of like a chess game, and we're going to watch it like we're watching a TV program, a fictional TV program, but it's nonfiction, right? So I just don't see that becoming something that would, get him to step down, or it's possible. I mean, we know other premiers have stepped down over certain things, and we were involved in that with Gordon Campbell. So we were very fortunate with Gordon Campbell because, we were able to, get our numbers to get legislation recalled. And then as a kicker, as a bonus, he left the country in tears. So we were happy about that outcome, but you have to have the planets line up pretty good for a premier to step down. There's a lot of dirt on David Eby besides what we've just heard, and people know it, and it gets blown up or it doesn't, right?
All right. Another question. Why is it that people aren't more outraged over the fact that it's taken 10 days to count these ballots?
I think people are just, I think they're exhausted, honestly. I think they're exhausted because in the middle of you reading about one kind of scandalous situation, another one's happening, and it's like you're being hit with so many bullets from so many different directions. It's like, you do have to think about your health at some point, like your sanity. And if you're trying to keep track of all this stuff, like, God bless the people that can do it, because I know that I have to tap out sometimes because it's so frustrating that people just shrug their shoulders. And I know what shrugging your shoulders is going to do to people and do to society, right? So you have to face the problems head on. But when you've got 100 of them coming at you every day and you're trying to support families or work or do whatever you have to do, it's exhausting, and people are always looking for somebody else to do it for you, right? But I do take solace in the fact there's so many different organizations doing amazing work. Like, there's amazing people in our country that are doing some real I call it Columbo type work. Like, they just don't stop. They're pit bulls, and it's awesome, right? Like, that gives me hope that we just get more, and just being able to talk to somebody like yourself, who's an independent, um, didn't really exist very much. I mean, there are exceptions, but it's great that we have the explosion of independent, podcasters and journalists, and as long as they stay independent and on the up and up, I think we'll always have hope. But these bills are meant to go after people like you and people like me, that they don't want opening up their mouths that might have some information that's damaging, right? So, I mean, I'm not going to stop. I know Peter's got a lot to lose. We talk a fair bit about this kind of stuff, but they're coming after those people, right? So, we're going to do whatever we can and hope other people join, because the more people we have like that, the safer we're all going to be, right? So, human history, right? Human history. Rome was never going to fall until it did, right? And it's their arrogance that is our what helps us. Their arrogance that they'll never ever be brought down, because they can't be. They feel that way. They've gotten away with murder, and they're just going to keep doing it. It's a disease, right? So we just want our lives back. We don't want any, money out of this, or notoriety or anything. Just we want to get our lives back, and we want our kids to have a future. So it's real simple. Truth wins. If we all participate in it, we're gonna win. But we're making it hard on ourselves. I'll put it that way.
All right, one final question, and this one is a little bit unique. So I'm just going to read it in its entirety. The right-wing party who is sympathetic to Russia won in Georgia, and the president of that country, the current president of Georgia, who was born in Paris and has 2 citizenships, is calling for like a nullification. She's not accepting the results. The question is, how come we don't see this here, where we say, like, this is a globalist interference in our system? We don't accept these elections.
Well, first of all, we don't have a strong enough, united enough citizens population to be able to sway public opinion, right? So you don't have to be government to sway things. You need a large enough organization. If you're all on the side of good and truth and freedom and whatever you want to put in as something that adds value to your life, if you're the largest organization, there's nothing the government's going to be able to do to stop it. So you obviously have divided, populations everywhere, divided intentions. There's all these other factors. Religion plays a part. I mean, all of these things play a part. But any large organization that's united in a message that is for the good, you start to see what society's made of. Like, who's gravitating for it? Who's making excuses for it? Like, why would you make excuses for a Bill Gates? So you start to, just do the math and start seeing who's on this train, who's on that train. And if your intentions are for good, that's how you change society. All the bills in the world that are being made to scare everybody, they mean nothing. If we, just like we thought the Nuremberg Code meant something, it obviously meant something when you're going through life in the 40s and 50s, and there's a Nuremberg Code and they saw what happened. No one's messing with that. It's indestructible. But now it's just a piece of paper. So why do people think these pieces of paper they're making up today have so much power? Because they're allowing it, right? The population's allowing it. Their population's allowing themselves to be scared of what the Senate just passed, or what the Trudeau government just passed, or whatever. It's our psychology. These guys are clowns. These guys are cowards. And if we all get together as a mass formation for what is good, we're going to get out of this mess and ignore these people.
Rick, how can people learn more about Independent BC?
Well, unfortunately, we did shut the whole Independent BC group down because we didn't want to get anybody in trouble or ourselves with election interference. So people will notice that all of our stuff, all of our advertising, everything just went, into the whatever, the vault. Okay. So, we're not actually functioning as a group anymore, like an educational group. Um, there may be other things that come up, whether we have anything to do with it or not, I don't know. I intend personally, I just want to lend all the support we do, I should say. There's a small group of us. We want to lend everything we can to places like Nova Scotia, any other jurisdictions that want information on how the system works, independent representation, whatever level you may be at, wherever you might be at, because that's going to be our future, is independent representation. Um, if anybody is interested, they can contact me or Patricia Jacks. I know Sal does want to write a book and sail off in the sunset. He's not a spring chicken anymore, but there's a small group of us that want to keep the flame alive. So right now we're hoping to help out where we can with anybody that's interested. Nova Scotia's next on the block, and yeah, we're wishing them the best and doing whatever we can to support them and letting people know that there is an alternative in independent representation. Get a hold of Peter McIsaac. You can do that through me. And yeah, anybody in Canada interested, we're happy to work with you. But yeah, we're just a very small group that hopefully have had some impact, and we'd like to see a better world for everybody. So we're doing the little pieces of things we can do. So.
And how exactly do people get a hold of you?
The best way,
You never
well,
mentioned that.
I shut my doors, but I got a lot of other stuff, a lot of other things I have to get through. Anybody can find me on Facebook, and if they want to ask me, I'm not a techie guy, but I do have Facebook, and if they have any questions, they can do it through that. That's probably, yeah, your best right now, and I'm happy to help wherever I can help. And maybe down the road, when I get some of this other stuff dealt with, there will be something, but I just don't know right now. So.
All right, Rick, when you figure out what your next move is, let me know.
Thank
We'll get
you.
you back on.
Yeah. I do have to go on a vacation at some time.
Maybe we'll get you back. You can do an interview on the beach in your flip flops.
Awesome. Perfect. I'd love that.
All right, Rick.
Thanks,
for
Payman.
coming
Thanks
on.
for everything you do.
No worries. Take care.
You too. Bye.